My name is Amelia Harper, and for most of my life, I believed family was supposed to be your safest place. The one group of people who would always have your back no matter what. I grew up believing that with all my heart until the day my own cousin destroyed that belief in front of everyone I loved. I was 31 years old when this nightmare began. I had built a good, quiet life for myself. After serving 6 years in the U.S. Army as a communications specialist, I left the military with an honorable discharge and started my own small cybersecurity consulting business. I was proud of what I had accomplished. I had a beautiful little apartment, a loyal golden retriever named Max, and a circle of friends who felt like family. But my real pride was my extended family. We were close, maybe too close. Every summer, my grandparents hosted a massive family BBQ at their lakeside property. It was the one event nobody missed. Cousins, aunts, uncles, kids running around everywhere. For years, those weekends were the highlight of my year. My cousin Ryan was always the center of attention, 2 years older than me, tall, loud, and charming in that cocky way. He was the golden boy of the family, the one who got away with everything. While I was serving overseas, Ryan stayed home, partied through college, and somehow landed a cushy sales job. Everyone adored him, especially my grandparents. I never minded the attention he got. I was proud of my service, even if I didn't talk about it much. After leaving the Army, I tried my best to fit back into civilian family life. I helped my grandparents with chores, played with the younger cousins, and listened to everyone's stories. I thought I was finally home. That particular summer, I was especially excited. I had just signed my biggest client yet, a contract that would take my business to the next level. I was also secretly hoping to reconnect with someone special. His name was Daniel. We had been talking for a few months. He was kind, steady, and made me feel seen. I invited him to the family BBQ, thinking it would be the perfect way to introduce him to my world. The day of the BBQ was beautiful. The sun was shining, the lake sparkled, and the smell of grilled meat and laughter filled the air. I wore a simple white sundress and felt genuinely happy. Daniel arrived looking nervous but sweet. My grandparents welcomed him warmly. For a few perfect hours, everything felt right. I helped in the kitchen, played games with the kids, and even joined a few conversations about my time in the service. I didn't go into details, I never did. Some memories were still too heavy, but I felt proud sharing small pieces of my journey. Ryan, of course, dominated most conversations. He was bragging about his recent promotion and new car. I smiled and congratulated him like I always did. I had no idea that in just a few hours, the same cousin I had defended and supported for years would turn on me in the cruelest way possible. As the sun began to set and everyone gathered around the big bonfire, I had no clue that my entire world was about to shatter, and that one quiet moment, one forgotten call sign from my military days, would change everything. The afternoon was going so well that I almost missed the first small cracks appearing in what I thought was a solid family bond. As the sun climbed higher, I noticed Ryan watching me a little too closely. Every time I spoke to Daniel, Ryan would insert himself into the conversation with a loud laugh or a sarcastic comment. At first, I brushed it off. Ryan had always been like that, the guy who needed to be the funniest person in the room. But something felt different this time. There was an edge to his jokes that hadn't been there before. While I was helping my grandmother in the kitchen, she casually mentioned, "Ryan's been talking a lot about your time in the Army lately. He seems very interested." I smiled and said it was nice that he was finally showing interest in my life. But deep down, a small uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. Later that afternoon, while Daniel and I were sitting by the lake talking, Ryan walked over with two of our other cousins. He slapped Daniel on the back a little too hard and said, "So, you're dating Amelia?" Brave man. She's got secrets, you know. He laughed like it was the funniest thing ever, but his eyes stayed cold. Daniel looked uncomfortable. I tried to laugh it off and changed the subject, but the moment stuck with me. As evening approached and everyone gathered for the big bonfire, the mood shifted again. Ryan had clearly been drinking more than usual. He was louder, more aggressive with his jokes. When one of my uncles asked me about my cybersecurity business, Ryan jumped in before I could answer. "Oh yeah, Amelia's a big shot now," he said with a smirk, sitting behind a computer all day, playing hero. Meanwhile, some of us actually work real jobs. A few people chuckled, but I felt my cheeks burn. Daniel squeezed my hand supportively. I told myself Ryan was just being his usual self-jealous and insecure. I had defended him so many times in the past when others criticized his lazy attitude. Surely he wouldn't turn on me in front of the entire family. But the warnings kept coming. My aunt pulled me aside near the dessert table and whispered, "Be careful tonight, Amelia. Ryan's been saying some strange things about you lately. Something about you thinking you're better than everyone because you served." I was shocked. I had never acted superior. If anything, I downplayed my military service because I didn't want to make others uncomfortable. I brushed it off again. "He's probably just drunk," I told her with a forced smile. You know how Ryan gets. As the bonfire grew bigger and people started sharing stories, I felt a growing tension in the air. Daniel noticed it too. He leaned over and asked quietly, "Is everything okay with your cousin? He keeps staring at you." I assured him everything was fine, but inside, doubt was creeping in. Why was Ryan so fixated on me tonight? What had I done to deserve this sudden hostility? The biggest red flag came when my grandfather asked me to say a few words about my time in the service. I hesitated, but stood up. I kept it light-talked about the friendships I made and the pride I felt serving my country. Nothing boastful. Ryan muttered loudly enough for half the circle to hear, "Yeah, real hero stuff." Sitting in air-conditioned rooms, pressing buttons. A few awkward laughs followed. My heart sank. This wasn't the playful teasing I was used to. This felt personal. I sat back down, my hands slightly shaking. Daniel put his arm around me protectively. I told myself I was overreacting. It was just one bad night. Ryan had always been competitive. Tomorrow everything would go back to normal. But as the fire crackled and people started telling ghost stories, I couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was brewing. I had no idea that in less than an hour, my cousin would humiliate me in front of the entire family in a way I would never forget, and that one single word from my past would bring an unexpected savior into the chaos. The tension around the bonfire kept rising as the night grew darker. I tried my best to enjoy the moment, sitting close to Daniel with my hand in his, but Ryan's behavior was becoming impossible to ignore. He kept circling back to me, making snide comments that grew sharper with every drink. At one point, my younger cousin asked me what it was like being a woman in the military. Before I could even open my mouth, Ryan jumped in loudly. "Oh, please," he scoffed, loud enough for everyone to hear. Amelia wasn't even in real combat. She was just pushing buttons in some safe little office. Real soldiers were out there bleeding while she played computer games. A heavy silence fell over the group. My face burned with embarrassment and hurt. I had never claimed to be a frontline hero. I had served in communications and cyber intelligence work that saved lives in ways most people would never understand. But I stayed quiet, not wanting to cause a scene at my grandparents' event. Daniel shifted uncomfortably beside me. "That's not fair, man," he said calmly. Amelia served her country with honor. Ryan laughed that ugly, mocking laugh I would never forget. Honor? Come on. She got out after 6 years and now acts like she's some kind of badass cybersecurity expert. We all know she's just riding the veteran card for sympathy and contracts. That one hurt the most. I had worked incredibly hard to build my business from nothing. I had cried through many sleepless nights battling PTSD and trying to adjust to civilian life. And here was my own cousin, in front of the entire family, tearing me down. I finally spoke up, my voice quieter than I wanted. "Ryan, why are you doing this?" He leaned forward, eyes glassy from alcohol, and smirked. "Because someone needs to say it. You walk around like you're better than all of us. Miss Independent. Miss I served my country. Meanwhile, you barely show up for family anymore, unless it benefits you." The words cut deep. I had missed some family events because I was deployed or recovering from service-related injuries, but I had always tried to make up for it. I sent money when my grandparents needed help with medical bills. I called regularly. I thought I had been a good family member. Several relatives looked uncomfortable, but no one defended me. That silence hurt almost as much as Ryan's words. Daniel stood up for me again, but Ryan turned on him too. "And you better watch out. She's got secrets. Doesn't she, Amelia?" That's when my blood ran cold. What secrets was he talking about? Before I could respond, Ryan stood up dramatically in front of the entire bonfire circle. The flames danced across his face as he raised his voice. "Let me tell you all something about perfect little Amelia. While she was supposedly serving, she was actually involved in some classified stuff she still won't talk about. Probably did some shady things. That's why she never shares details. She's hiding something big." Gasps and murmurs spread through the family. My grandmother looked shocked. My grandfather's face tightened with confusion. I felt completely exposed and humiliated. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall in front of everyone. I stood up slowly, my voice shaking, but clear. "Ryan, that's enough. You have no idea what you're talking about." He laughed again, loud and cruel. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about. You think your little call sign makes you special? Ghost something? Please, you're just a fraud." The word hit me like a slap. My old call sign, Ghost 7, something very few people knew. How did Ryan know about it? The betrayal felt suffocating. This wasn't just drunken teasing anymore. This was deliberate, personal, public. Daniel tried to pull me away, but I stood frozen, staring at the cousin I had grown up with, defended, and loved like a brother. In that moment, I realized something had fundamentally broken between us. As the night spiraled further, Ryan kept going, revealing bits and pieces of information about my military past that he should not have known. Each word felt like another knife in my back. I had no idea how he got that information, or what else he was planning to expose. But the worst was yet to come. The bonfire crackled loudly, but it felt like the entire world had gone silent after Ryan spoke my old call sign. Ghost 7. Very few people knew that name. It was classified, personal, sacred to me. I stood there frozen, staring at my cousin in complete disbelief. "How do you know that name, Ryan?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. He smirked, clearly enjoying the power he held in that moment. The entire family was watching us now. Daniel stood beside me, his hand on my lower back for support. My grandparents looked confused and concerned. Ryan took another sip from his beer and laughed. "Oh, you thought your little secrets were safe? I have friends too, Amelia, real friends in high places. Turns out your honorable service wasn't so honorable after all." That's when he dropped the bomb that shattered everything. He pulled out his phone and waved it dramatically. "While you were playing soldier, you were actually involved in covering up mistakes, weren't you? Some operation went wrong, and you helped hide the records. Ghost 7, the one who made problems disappear." My stomach dropped. The accusation was completely false, but the details were too specific. Someone had fed him real information from my service record and twisted it into something ugly. "Ryan, stop this right now," my grandfather said firmly, but Ryan ignored him. He turned to the whole family. "She acts like this big hero, but she's been lying to all of us for years. That's why she barely talks about her service. That's why she's so secretive. Amelia isn't the saint you all think she is." The humiliation was crushing. I felt like I was standing naked in front of everyone I loved. Tears finally spilled down my cheeks. Daniel tried to defend me, but Ryan cut him off. "And you," Ryan pointed at Daniel, "she probably hasn't told you half the things she did." Good luck with that. The betrayal cut deeper than I could describe. This wasn't just cousin rivalry. This was deliberate, calculated destruction. I had spent years protecting Ryan, covering for him when he got in trouble as a teenager, lending him money when he partied too hard, defending him when family members called him lazy. And this was how he repaid me? I finally found my voice, though it shook with rage and pain. "Why are you doing this to me, Ryan? What did I ever do to you?" He stepped closer, his face twisted with resentment. "Because you've always thought you were better than me. Miss Army, Miss Successful Businesswoman. Everyone always talks about how proud they are of you. I'm tired of living in your shadow." In that moment, everything became crystal clear. This wasn't about truth. This was pure jealousy and insecurity. Ryan had been nursing this hatred for years, and tonight he had finally found the perfect stage to destroy me. The family was in shock. Some relatives started whispering. My grandmother had tears in her eyes. My grandfather looked disappointed in both of us. Daniel stood protectively in front of me, but the damage was already done. I couldn't stay there any longer. I turned and walked away from the bonfire, heading toward the lake with Daniel following close behind. My legs felt weak. My chest was tight. I had never felt so publicly humiliated and betrayed in my entire life. As we reached the water's edge, I broke down completely. Daniel held me while I sobbed. "I don't understand." I cried. "He's family. Why would he do this?" That night, I barely slept. The next morning, things got even worse. Several family members started texting me. Some believed Ryan's twisted version. Others were confused. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages, some supportive, many questioning. My business email also started getting strange inquiries. Someone had leaked information about the controversy surrounding my military record. Ryan had not only humiliated me in front of the family, he had started a campaign to damage my reputation and my business. By the following afternoon, 2 of my biggest clients had called asking for clarification about allegations they had heard. The life I had worked so hard to build after leaving the military was suddenly crumbling. I sat on my apartment floor that evening, surrounded by old photos and military memorabilia, feeling completely destroyed. The cousin I had loved and protected had publicly tried to ruin me. And the worst part was I still didn't know how deep this betrayal actually went, because Ryan knowing my classified call sign wasn't an accident. Someone had given him that information. Someone who had access to my records. And I was about to find out who. The days after the family bubik became the darkest chapter of my life. I felt like I was drowning in slow motion, and no one was coming to pull me out. I barely left my apartment for the first week. Max, my golden retriever, stayed glued to my side, sensing something was deeply wrong. I would sit on the couch for hours, staring at the wall, replaying Ryan's cruel laughter and every hurtful word he had thrown at me in front of the entire family. The humiliation burned like acid in my chest. My phone kept buzzing. Some messages were from relatives asking what really happened. Others were from people who had heard Ryan's version and were now questioning my character. 2 of my biggest clients emailed, asking for a clarification meeting about my military background. The business I had built with blood, sweat, and countless sleepless nights was suddenly at risk. Daniel tried his best to be there for me. He came over every evening, brought food, and held me while I cried. But even his presence couldn't stop the crushing self-doubt that consumed me. At night, I would lie awake wondering if Ryan was right. Had I become arrogant? Had I distanced myself from the family? Was I really hiding something shameful from my service? The worst part was the silence from the people I thought would defend me. My grandparents called only once, a short, awkward conversation where they said they didn't want to get involved in cousin drama. That hurt more than Ryan's words. The same grandparents I had helped financially and emotionally for years were choosing neutrality instead of standing up for me. I stopped answering calls. I canceled all my work meetings. I barely ate. I felt completely isolated, like the girl who once served her country with pride was now just a broken woman sitting in the dark. One particularly bad night, I opened a bottle of wine and went through old photos on my laptop, pictures from my deployment days, pictures with my unit, pictures of me receiving commendations. I cried so hard that Max climbed into my lap and licked my face, trying to comfort me. In that moment, I felt like a complete failure. All the resilience I had built during my military career felt gone. Ryan had managed to break something deep inside me with just one night of cruelty. Daniel gently suggested I see a therapist. I agreed, but the first few sessions were brutal. I sat there numb, repeating the same question: why would my own cousin do this to me? The therapist helped me understand it was jealousy and insecurity, but understanding didn't stop the pain. Then came the real losses. One of my major clients dropped me after receiving concerning information. My income took a massive hit. Bills started piling up. I had to let go of the beautiful office space I had just rented. The business I had poured my heart into after leaving the army was shrinking fast. The isolation grew heavier. Friends I thought were close slowly distanced themselves after hearing rumors. Even some military veterans I knew through networking started asking careful questions. The shame was overwhelming. I began to question my entire identity. Who was I, if not the strong, proud veteran everyone once respected? Ryan, meanwhile, seemed to be thriving. I heard through family group chats that he was telling everyone how he had finally exposed the truth. He posted subtle jabs on social media, nothing direct enough to confront, but clearly aimed at me. Every time I saw his name, fresh pain stabbed through me. I hit rock bottom one rainy Thursday night. I sat on my bathroom floor at 2 a.m., surrounded by scattered papers from my business and old military records. I whispered to myself, maybe I am the problem. Maybe they're all right about me. For the first time in my life, I felt truly hopeless. The strong woman who had served overseas felt completely shattered. Daniel found me there. He didn't say much. He just sat on the cold floor with me, pulled me into his arms, and let me cry until I had nothing left. That night, he made me promise I wouldn't give up. You survived war, Amelia. You can survive this betrayal too. His words planted a tiny seed of hope, but I was still deep in the darkness. The pain was all-consuming. The self-doubt was suffocating. The loneliness felt endless. Little did I know that while I was falling apart, hidden truths about Ryan's actions were slowly coming to light. Information that would reveal this betrayal went much deeper than drunken jealousy at a family bubbick. Someone had been feeding him classified details about my service, and I was about to discover who had betrayed me even worse than Ryan. The darkness surrounding me was so heavy that I almost missed the first thread that would eventually unravel everything. It started with a single message. 3 weeks after the bubbick, I received a text from an unknown number. Amelia, it wasn't just Ryan. Be careful. Someone close gave him your file. I stared at the message for almost an hour before replying. The sender refused to give their name, but agreed to meet me in a quiet coffee shop far from my usual area. When I arrived, I recognized her immediately, Sarah, an old friend from my Army days, who now worked in records management. She looked nervous as she slid a folder across the table. I'm risking my job by showing you this, she whispered. But what Ryan did was wrong. What I saw inside that folder destroyed what little trust I had left in my family. Ryan hadn't just heard rumors. He had received a full copy of my service records, including classified mission summaries. The document even had my call sign, Ghost 7, highlighted. Someone with official access had deliberately leaked my information to him. But the real betrayal was who sent it. The records had been requested and forwarded by my Uncle Marcus, my father's younger brother. The same uncle who always acted like the wise one in the family. The man I had trusted enough to help with my grandparents' finances. I felt sick. Uncle Marcus had always been jealous of my success. He had once asked me for a loan to start his own business, and I had politely declined. This was his revenge. Sarah continued, her voice low. It gets worse, Amelia. Ryan wasn't acting alone. He's been working with Marcus for months. They planned to damage your reputation so you would lose clients and eventually need to borrow money from the family. They wanted you desperate. The pieces finally clicked into place. The sudden hostility. The specific details Ryan knew. The way he timed everything at the family bubba was all coordinated. But the deepest cut was still coming. When I got home, I asked Daniel to help me dig deeper. We spent hours going through old emails and financial records. That's when we discovered the most painful truth of all. Uncle Marcus had been siphoning small amounts of money from my grandparents' accounts for years. He had used my name as a cover multiple times, making it look like I was the one asking for financial help. Ryan knew about it and had helped cover it up. The bubbick wasn't just about humiliating me, it was meant to destroy my credibility, so that if the truth about the missing money ever came out, everyone would blame me. I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by printed evidence, shaking with rage and heartbreak. The two people I had grown up trusting, my cousin and my uncle, had spent months plotting to ruin me. All because of jealousy and greed. Daniel was furious. This isn't just betrayal, Amelia. This is calculated destruction. The final twist came 2 days later. I received another anonymous message with a voice recording. It was Ryan talking to Uncle Marcus on the phone just 2 days before the BBQ. Ryan, once we take her down at the BBQ, she'll have no choice but to come begging to the family for help. Then we control everything. Marcus, just make sure you mention the Callsign. That'll destroy her credibility with the older generation. They still think she's some kind of hero. I listened to that recording on repeat, tears streaming down my face. The people I had defended, helped, and loved had been planning my downfall like it was a game. That night, something inside me finally snapped. The pain was still there, deep, raw, and crushing. But alongside it, a cold, clear anger began to grow. For the first time since the BBQ, I didn't just feel like a victim. I felt like a soldier again. I looked at Daniel and said quietly, they wanted to break me. Instead, they just woke me up. I didn't know it yet, but this discovery was only the beginning. Because the man who would eventually help me deliver justice had already been watching everything unfold. A retired Navy SEAL who had once worked with me overseas had heard about the incident, and he remembered Ghost 7 very well. After discovering the full extent of Ryan and Uncle Marcus's betrayal, something inside me began to change. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but the heavy fog of despair slowly started to lift. For the first time since that horrible night at the bonfire, I felt the faint spark of the old Amelia, the soldier, the fighter, beginning to wake up. I made a promise to myself that night. I would not let them break me. The rebuilding started small. I forced myself to get out of bed every morning at the same time. I took Max for long walks by the river, letting the fresh air clear my mind. Some days I still cried during those walks. Other days, I walked with purpose, replaying everything I had learned and turning the pain into fuel. Daniel was incredibly patient and supportive. He never pushed me, but he was always there. One evening, he came home with a new notebook and said, "You've spent weeks writing down everything they did to you. Now start writing down who you're going to become." That notebook became my lifeline. Every night I wrote 3 things: what I was grateful for, what I had survived, and what my next step would be. I went back to therapy more seriously. My therapist helped me separate my identity from the betrayal. "You are not what they tried to make you," she told me. "You are the woman who served her country. The woman who built a business from nothing. The woman who is still standing." Those words slowly started sinking in. I also reconnected with my military roots in a new way. I reached out to a few old friends from my unit, people I had lost touch with after leaving the service. Their responses overwhelmed me with support. One of them, Captain Reyes, told me, "Ghost 7 was one of the best. Don't let anyone diminish what you did." Hearing my old call signs spoken with respect instead of mockery healed something deep inside me. Little by little, I started rebuilding my business. I personally called every client, explained the situation with honesty and dignity, and offered to work extra hours to prove my value. Most of them stayed. A few even became more loyal after hearing the truth. I realized that transparency was my greatest strength. But the biggest transformation was internal. I stopped hiding my military background. I updated my website and LinkedIn with my real story, not bragging, but owning it. I joined a local veteran support group and started mentoring younger women who had also struggled with transitioning to civilian life. Helping others gave me a sense of purpose again. One powerful moment came during a quiet evening at home. I took out my old uniform and medals and laid them on the bed. Instead of feeling shame like I had for weeks, I felt pride. I had served with honor. No one, not Ryan, not Uncle Marcus, could take that away from me. Daniel noticed the change first. One night while we were cooking together, he smiled and said, "There she is. My fighter is coming back." I laughed for the first time in months. It felt good. With my confidence returning, strategic thoughts began forming in my mind. I wasn't interested in loud, emotional revenge. I wanted something smarter, something cleaner, something that would expose the truth without destroying me in the process. I started quietly gathering evidence screenshots, financial records, the voice recording, and statements from Sarah. I organized everything carefully, just like I used to do during sensitive operations in the army. The soldier in me was waking up fully now. I still had moments of doubt. Some nights the memory of Ryan's laughter at the BBQ would hit me hard. But instead of crumbling, I would open my notebook and read the words I had written. They tried to bury me. They didn't know I was a seed. I was no longer just surviving. I was preparing, and I had no idea that help was already on the way from a man I hadn't spoken to in years, a retired Navy SEAL who had once worked alongside my unit. Someone who remembered Ghost 7 very clearly. The pieces were falling into place. The woman they tried to destroy was transforming into someone far stronger than they could ever imagine. The fire inside me had been lit. After months of pain, collapse, and slow rebuilding, I was no longer just healing, I was preparing for justice. And this time, I wasn't going in emotional and unprepared like I had been at the family BBQ. This time, I was strategic. I turned my spare bedroom into a command center, just like we used to do during important operations in the Army. The walls were covered with timelines, printed messages, bank records, and screenshots. Every piece of evidence was dated and categorized. Daniel helped me organize everything late into the nights. He would bring coffee and sit with me, quietly impressed by how focused I had become. "I've never seen you like this," he said one night. "It's a little scary, in a good way." I wasn't interested in screaming matches or public drama. I wanted something clean, undeniable, and permanent. I wanted the truth to come out in a way that protected my reputation and exposed Ryan and Uncle Marcus for what they really were. First, I consulted a lawyer who specialized in defamation and privacy cases. Her name was Victoria Lang Sharp. No nonsense, and a former military prosecutor herself. After reviewing everything I had, she looked at me across her desk and said, "This is one of the most calculated family betrayals I've seen. We have a strong case." Together, we built a comprehensive strategy. We prepared a formal demand letter to both Ryan and Uncle Marcus, backed by all the evidence. We also prepared a defamation lawsuit if they refused to retract their statements and compensate for the damage to my business. But I wanted more than just money. I wanted the family to know the truth. I reached out quietly to a few trusted relatives, the ones who had expressed doubts about Ryan's story. I didn't badmouth anyone. I simply shared facts and offered to show them the evidence. Slowly, the tide began turning. My grandmother called me one afternoon in tears, saying she had confronted Uncle Marcus and he had become defensive and angry. The most powerful preparation came when an unexpected ally appeared. One evening, I received a message from an unknown number. Ghost 7. "This is Chief Harlan. Retired Navy SEAL. Served with your unit in 2018. Heard what happened at the family BBQ. I'd like to talk." My heart nearly stopped. Chief Harlan, the legendary SEAL who had worked with our intelligence team on several critical missions. He remembered me, He remembered Ghost 7. We met in a quiet park 2 days later. He was exactly as I remembered, tall, calm, and intimidating in that quiet way. After we sat down, he looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I don't like it when good soldiers get stabbed in the back by their own blood. Tell me everything." I told him the whole story. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "Your cousin and uncle made a big mistake. They attacked the wrong person." Chief Harlan offered to help in ways I never expected. As a highly respected veteran with connections, his word carried enormous weight. He also had contacts who could verify the authenticity of the leaked documents. Most importantly, he agreed to be a character witness if the case went public. Having a retired Navy SEAL on my side gave me a new level of confidence. Ryan and Marcus had tried to destroy a weak civilian version of me. They had no idea they were now facing Ghost 7 again this time, fully supported. Over the next few weeks, we strengthened our position even more. I hired a forensic expert to trace exactly how my service records were leaked. The trail led clearly back to Uncle Marcus. We also gathered financial evidence showing how Marcus had been misusing my grandparents' money and blaming it on me. The suspense kept building. Ryan started getting nervous. He tried calling me several times, leaving voicemails that swung between threats and fake apologies. I saved every single one. Uncle Marcus even tried to contact my grandparents to turn them against me again. But this time, they didn't fully believe him. I worked late into many nights, carefully preparing my statements, practicing what I would say, and visualizing the moment the truth would finally come out. The old Amelia who stayed silent to keep the peace was gone. The new Amelia was calculated, prepared, and determined. Daniel looked at me one night while I was reviewing documents and said softly, "You're going to win this, Amelia. Not just for you, but for every person they tried to break." I nodded, feeling the weight and power of that truth. Everything was falling into place. The evidence was strong. The allies were powerful. The plan was solid. But I knew the final confrontation would still be painful, because no matter how prepared I would still have to face my own family and expose their betrayal in front of everyone. The storm was coming, and this time I was ready. The first cracks in Ryan and Uncle Marcus's carefully built lies began to show much faster than I expected. It started with my grandparents. After I shared the voice recording and financial documents with them privately, the illusion they had been living under started crumbling. My grandmother called me one morning, her voice trembling with anger and sadness. "Amelia, I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence is right here. Marcus has been taking money from us for years, and Ryan helped him cover it up. That phone call was the beginning of the first fall. Uncle Marcus was the first to feel real pressure. My grandparents confronted him directly. According to what I later heard, he tried to deny everything at first, but when they mentioned the voice recording and the traced financial transfers, he broke down and started blaming Ryan, saying it was all his idea. The two of them turned on each other almost immediately, just as I had hoped. Ryan, who had been bragging around the family about exposing me, suddenly became very quiet. He stopped posting on social media. His cocky attitude disappeared. I heard from a cousin that he was panicking because several family members had started distancing themselves from him. But the most satisfying early victory came through Chief Harlan. He made a few strategic calls to people in the veteran community. Within days, the story of what Ryan had done at the Bubbick started spreading quietly among local veterans. Ryan worked in sales, a field where reputation matters. Two of his biggest clients, who were also veterans, pulled their contracts after learning how he had disrespected a fellow service member. His boss called him in for a meeting. Ryan tried calling me again, this time sounding desperate. I let it go to voicemail. Amelia, look, I was drunk. I didn't mean half the things I said. Can we just talk? This is getting out of hand. I saved the message and sent it to my lawyer. Daniel and I celebrated the small wins quietly. One evening, while walking Max, he looked at me and said, "You're not the same woman who was crying on the bathroom floor anymore. You're becoming unstoppable." He was right. I could feel my power returning. The biggest shift happened when my grandparents called for an emergency family meeting without Ryan and Uncle Marcus. Only the core family was invited. I attended with Daniel and Chief Harlan by my side for support. In that meeting, I played the voice recording for everyone. I showed the financial records. I explained, calmly and clearly, exactly what Ryan and Marcus had planned and done. The room was dead silent. My aunt started crying. My grandfather looked devastated. For the first time, the family saw the full truth. Ryan tried to show up uninvited, but my grandfather told him to leave. I watched from the window as Ryan stood in the driveway arguing loudly before storming off. The golden boy who had always gotten away with everything was finally facing consequences. Uncle Marcus tried one last manipulation. He sent a long emotional message to the family group chat, claiming I was destroying the family and that I had always been jealous of Ryan. But this time, it didn't work. The evidence was too strong. Several relatives replied publicly, defending me. I was gaining momentum. Chief Harlan's involvement added even more weight. He spoke to a few people privately, emphasizing how serious it was to leak military records and defame a veteran. The pressure on Ryan and Marcus increased daily. I still had moments of sadness. Sometimes I would remember the happy family BBQs from years ago and feel a deep sense of loss. But those moments were becoming fewer. Every small victory reminded me that I was no longer their victim. I was taking my power back. Ryan's life was visibly unraveling. He lost 2 major clients. His girlfriend broke up with him after hearing the full story. Even some of his close friends started questioning him. The first fall had begun. But I knew this was only the beginning. The final confrontation was coming, a moment where everything would be laid bare in front of the entire family. And this time, I wouldn't be standing alone. Chief Harlan had already agreed to stand with me. Daniel was by my side. And most importantly, I had finally found the strength I thought I had lost forever. The betrayers were starting to lose control, and I was just getting started. The day of the final family confrontation arrived with heavy rain, as if the sky itself understood the weight of what was about to happen. My grandparents had called a full family meeting at their house, the same place where everything had fallen apart at the BBQ just a few months earlier. This time, everyone was invited, including Ryan and Uncle Marcus. No one was allowed to skip it. I arrived with Daniel by my side and Chief Harlan walking quietly behind us. The moment I stepped into the living room, the atmosphere became thick with tension. Ryan was already there, sitting in the corner, looking pale and nervous. Uncle Marcus sat beside him, trying to appear confident, but failing miserably. Nearly 30 family members filled the room. My grandparents sat at the center like judges presiding over a trial. My grandfather spoke first, his voice tired but firm. "We're here because this family has been torn apart by lies. Today, we're going to hear the truth. All of it." I stood up slowly. My hands were steady. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. I looked directly at Ryan and Uncle Marcus and began. "I came here today not to destroy anyone, but to finally speak the truth after you both tried to destroy me. I played the voice recording. The entire room heard Ryan and Marcus planning to humiliate me at the BBQ, planning to ruin my reputation so I would be forced to beg the family for money. Gasps and whispers spread across the room. Ryan's face turned white. Uncle Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I continued, my voice growing stronger. You leaked my classified military records. You used my callsign Ghost 7 to mock me in front of everyone I love. You tried to paint me as a liar and a fraud, all because you were jealous and greedy. I turned to the rest of the family. For years I stayed silent. I helped when they needed money. I defended Ryan when everyone called him lazy. I trusted Uncle Marcus with our grandparents' finances. And this is how they repaid me. Chief Harlan stood up next. The room became completely silent as this respected, imposing man spoke. I served with Amelia. Her call sign was Ghost 7 because she was one of the best communications specialists we had. She saved lives with her work. What Ryan and Marcus did, leaking her records and publicly humiliating a fellow veteran, is disgusting. It's shameful. The weight of a Navy SEAL's words hit the room like a hammer. Ryan tried to defend himself, his voice cracking. It was just a joke that got out of hand. I was drunk. Uncle Marcus attempted to twist the story again, but my grandmother cut him off sharply. Enough, Marcus. We've seen the bank records. We've seen the messages. Stop lying. The emotional showdown reached its peak when I looked Ryan straight in the eyes. You laughed at me that night. In front of the entire family, you called me a fraud. You tried to take away the pride I earned serving my country. But you failed, Ryan. You only made me stronger. Tears were falling down several faces in the room. My aunt stood up and hugged me. Even some cousins who had believed Ryan's lies earlier now looked ashamed. Ryan broke down. For the first time in his life, the golden boy had no clever words, no escape. He muttered weakly, "I'm sorry. I didn't think it would go this far." But sorry wasn't enough anymore. Uncle Marcus tried one last desperate move, appealing to my grandparents for mercy. My grandfather looked at him with disappointment I had never seen before and said, "You betrayed your own blood, Marcus. There will be consequences." As the meeting ended, the final truth settled over everyone. The family that had once blindly favored Ryan and Marcus now saw them for who they truly were. I walked out of that house with my head high. Daniel held my hand tightly. Chief Harlan gave me a respectful nod and said, "You did good, Ghost 7. Real good." The final confrontation was over, but justice was just beginning. The weeks following the final family confrontation brought real, tangible justice, not the dramatic movie kind, but the quiet, heavy kind that actually changes lives. The consequences started rolling in quickly. My grandparents made their decision official. They removed Uncle Marcus completely from any involvement in their finances and updated their will. They also made it clear that Ryan would no longer receive the large financial gifts he had been getting for years. The Golden Boy's free ride was over. Ryan's life unraveled faster than I expected. After the truth spread through the family and veteran community, he lost 3 major clients in his sales job. His boss gave him a formal warning about his conduct. His girlfriend of 2 years left him after hearing the full story. For the first time in his life, Ryan was facing the real world without the family safety net he had always relied on. Uncle Marcus faced even harsher consequences. My grandparents filed a formal complaint regarding the missing money. While they didn't want to send him to jail, They forced him to repay every cent he had taken over the years. He had to sell his expensive car and downsize his house. The wise uncle who had looked down on me was now struggling financially because of his own greed. I didn't celebrate their downfall. Instead, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. These were people I had once loved. Their fall wasn't joyful, it was simply necessary. On the professional side, my business began to recover strongly. Chief Harlan's support carried significant weight. Several veterans and companies reached out to me after hearing my story, wanting to work with someone who had real integrity. My client list not only recovered, it grew. I moved into a better office space and even hired my first employee. The most emotional moment of justice came 2 months after the family meeting. My grandparents invited me over for a private dinner. When I arrived, only they were there. No Ryan, no Marcus, just the three of us. My grandfather took my hands in his and said with tears in his eyes, "Amelia, we failed you. We let jealousy and lies blind us. You have always been the strongest, most honorable person in this family. We are so proud of you." My grandmother hugged me tightly and whispered, "We're sorry. We didn't stand up for you sooner." That moment healed something deep inside me. I forgave them not because they deserved it completely, but because I needed peace. Ryan eventually reached out. He sent a long message apologizing, but it felt empty. I replied with a short, dignified message. "I accept your apology, but I will never trust you again. Stay away from my life." I blocked his number after that. Daniel and I grew even closer through all of this. One quiet evening, he got down on one knee in our living room and proposed. With tears in my eyes, I said yes. He had stood by me through the darkest months of my life. He had seen me broken and watched me rise again. Chief Harlan became a mentor and close friend. He invited me to speak at a local veterans event about resilience and overcoming betrayal. Standing on that stage, sharing my story with other service members, I felt truly proud again. My callsign Ghost 7 was no longer a source of shame. It had become a symbol of strength. Justice wasn't loud or vengeful. It was steady and fair. Ryan and Marcus lost the power and respect they had abused for years. I regained my reputation, my business, and most importantly, my dignity. I stood taller. I spoke with more confidence. The woman who had once cried on her bathroom floor was gone. In her place was someone wiser, stronger, and finally at peace with her past. But the most beautiful part of justice wasn't what I took from them. It was what I gained back: my self-respect, my voice, and the freedom to live my life without carrying their betrayal. The storm was finally over. Now, it was time to step into a new chapter 1, filled with healing, love, and new beginnings. The storm had finally passed. After months of pain, betrayal, collapse, and hard-fought justice, I stepped into a new season of my life, one of genuine healing and beautiful new beginnings. 6 months after the final family confrontation, my life looked completely different. Daniel and I got married in a small, intimate ceremony by the same lake where the BBQ had taken place. Only the people who had truly stood by me were invited. Chief Harlan was there, smiling proudly. My grandparents walked me down the aisle together. There was no drama, no tension, just love, peace, and gratitude. I stood on the deck overlooking the water the morning after our wedding, watching the sun rise with Daniel's arms around me. For the first time in years, I felt truly light. The heavy weight I had carried since that horrible night at the bonfire was finally gone. My business, SafeLink Cybersecurity, was thriving. I now had 3 employees and a growing list of clients who respected me not just for my skills, but for my story. I started a support group for veterans transitioning to civilian life who had faced family betrayal. Watching others heal through my experiences gave my pain a greater purpose. Ryan and Uncle Marcus were no longer a central part of my life. Ryan eventually moved to another state for a lower-paying job. He sent me one final message apologizing and asking for another chance. I wished him well but made it clear that our relationship was over. Uncle Marcus was still repaying the money he owed my grandparents. We had no contact. The family had drawn new, healthier boundaries. My relationship with my grandparents grew deeper and more honest. We spent quiet weekends together. They apologized many times, and I forgave them fully. We created new traditions once without Ryan and Marcus. It felt like we were rebuilding something real. Max still follows me everywhere, but now our walks are filled with joy instead of tears. I run half marathons again. I laugh more freely. I sleep peacefully at night. The biggest healing came from within. I no longer defined myself by what Ryan and Marcus did to me. I defined myself by who I became because of it. The betrayal taught me the difference between loyalty and self-abandonment. It taught me that real family is not about blood, it's about who chooses to protect and respect you. Chief Harlan became like a father figure. He often tells people, Ghost 7 isn't just a call sign anymore. It's proof that even when your own blood tries to bury you, you can still rise. One quiet evening, while sitting on our porch with Daniel, I reflected on everything. The humiliation at the BBQ, the sleepless nights, the crushing self-doubt, the slow rebuilding, the powerful support from unexpected allies, the final confrontation, the justice. It had all been worth it. I looked at Daniel and whispered, "They tried to break me that night. Instead, they made me unbreakable. Today, I stand tall. I speak my truth without fear. I protect my peace fiercely, and I live with an open heart but never again with blind trust." To anyone listening to my story who is currently going through betrayal, especially from family, I want you to know this. Your pain is real. Your anger is valid. But your story does not end in their cruelty. You can rise. You can heal. You can build a life so beautiful that the betrayal becomes nothing but a distant chapter. I'm Amelia Harper, formerly Ghost 7. I was mocked, humiliated, and betrayed by my own blood. But I survived. I fought back. And I won. Not by destroying them, but by becoming someone they could never break again. Thank you for walking with me through this long and emotional journey. If you're watching this and carrying the weight of betrayal, especially from family, I hope my story reminds you that you are stronger than the pain they caused. The people who try to break you often underestimate what they're awakening. The greatest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. It's healing completely. It's becoming the person they never thought you could be. Protect your peace. Trust your strength. And never forget, even when your own family laughs at you in public, your story is far from over. This is Amelia Harper, signing off. Stay strong, warriors. The best part of your life is still ahead.